Well, it's that time again, that time when we once again wade into the increasingly less murky waters of state politics and take a look at how our AG, Raul Labrador, appears to be fighting for states' rights in Idaho. I'm joined by Ken, and I'm your host, Chris, and this is Three Pastors Walk Into a Bar. What's happening, Ken?
It's oddly empty in here today.
Yeah, it is. So this is probably going to be a short show because we'll be actually able to get down to business without Greg's numerous rabbit trails and jumping to the end of scripts, as he's so famous to do.
Yes.
I never really understood how he does that. It's like we can start at the beginning of something, like if we have a guest, and then we'll just be talking, or whatever. And then all of a sudden he'll ask the very last question in the script. Mm-hmm. It's like, Greg, why? Why, Greg?
It's anticipation. He's such an anxious guy.
He can't contain himself. Oh, all right. Well, so we have a new segment of the show that everybody is really enjoying. And we would be remiss to not include it in this week so that you can enjoy this brand new segment we like to call Disclaimer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a huge hit, much more than anticipated. Yeah, for sure.
It is.
So the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the respective speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, policies, or doctrines of Bethel Baptist Church and its members.
There you go.
So if you disagree with anything we say in here today, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
You're allowed.
It's okay to disagree. You live in America.
Yes.
You're allowed to disagree. It's okay.
You're welcome here.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
Let's all disagree together.
Amicably
and politely and civilly. There's plenty to disagree about. I got a feeling we're going to be talking about sheriff elections again here pretty soon. Because that sucker's heating up, isn't it?
It is. In fact, we're going to have the venerable sheriff back on the show next week.
Right, yeah, to talking about
a slightly different topic, but I think one that voters and citizens in the area are going to be interested in.
Might be interested to hear.
It's one of those things that you just kind of shove in the back of your mind and don't really think about it until you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. But it is no less applicable. So tune in for that. That's going to be good stuff. So in 2022, Raul Labrador was elected as the Attorney General of the state of Idaho, defeating Lawrence Wasden, who held the office for 20 years and was the longest-serving Attorney General in Idaho history. Wasden was criticized for being Governor Brad Little's protector and failing to defend Idaho's sovereignty during the pandemic. I think it's pretty much general knowledge that Wasden considered himself to be the governor's attorney as opposed to the people's attorney.
Yeah, he kind of saw his position as very unique, I think, among AGs.
Yeah, as if he was a part of the executive administration for the executive administration, as opposed to fighting for the state's rights of the people of the state, in spite of everyone else. But it seems like Raul has taken a slightly different tack and has asserted Idaho's state rights in several national issues already in his short tenure so far. And he's won several important victories, actually, even this month that we're going to look at today. So he's taken a slightly different tack. That's a sailing reference, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so like if you're...
See what I did there?
Yeah, so, well, yes, I did see what you did there, indeed. So like if you're going with the wind, you're just sailing. But if you're going against the wind, you have to tack, right? So you got to go side to side. Is that how that works?
Yeah, a sailboat can't sail directly into the wind. And so it sails what we say slightly off the wind, usually 20 to 50 degrees or so, to one direction. And of course that you make some progress towards your destination, but it's at an angle. But then once you go so far, or you begin to encounter obstacles in that direction, you tack to the opposite direction, the opposite offset angle, and you tack that way for a while. So you make this zigzag path in the direction that you're wanting to go.
And you could like make that pathway smaller if you're wanting to get somewhere directly, I suppose. Like if you wanted to do a lot of tacking.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the skill of sailing is determining how far you should go in these tack directions, because every time you change tack, you lose a little momentum, a little speed, and so your time to destination increases as you make tacks. But
Oh. Yeah, because you're
depending
having
on
to change the sails around and you're having to,
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of things going on there.
so like if you're going up a narrow channel, you're going to have to tack a lot to stay in the channel. If you're out in the open ocean, you can tack for days in each direction and then determine when you're going to get the most propulsion from the wind in that side of your tack as opposed to the other one. So there's some strategy and skill involved.
I guess it brings into question like how big those like wind directions are, you know, I mean, because if you could tack for days in the ocean, I guess all the prevailing wind is coming from one direction anyways.
It makes it very convenient and relaxing. You just don't have to worry until Wednesday we're going to tack.
Oh, yeah, I think we're going to tack today.
Right.
Yeah. But you're only making so much progress. And I guess the shallower the angle that, or the more acute the angle that you can take on, the more speed you're going to have, I guess.
That speaks to a particular sailboat's performance. We call them polars, but basically how close to the wind can a particular sailboat sail and make decent speed. Some sailboats, it's almost 90 degrees from that direction.
What determines that? Is it the way that the sails are constructed, or?
Yeah, it has to play with how the sails are made, how the way the rig is designed, the shape of the hull through the water, the friction, the weight, all of those things all come into play.
Jeez.
So racing sailboats is all about optimizing that angle into the wind so that you can sail as directly towards your destination, what's called a mark.
So when you see these guys in these sailing competitions and they're jumping from side to side and they're spinning these things really fast and all that, that's just them trying to limit the amount of speed that they're losing on any particular tack.
Right. Yeah, it's all about efficiency and speed and all of that.
That's bonkers. Yeah, you'll never look at that the same. You learn something new every day, guys. Mm-hmm. Never be afraid to learn something new, right?
That bit's free.
Yeah, well, Raul is not involved in that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm not. He may be. I don't know. Maybe he is a great sailor. I don't know.
Never know.
Who knows what he does? I don't know anything about his hobbies. I haven't looked up his dating profile, so I wouldn't know.
You don't follow him on Facebook real close?
No. I mean, I don't know if he likes long walks on the beach or, whatever.
Barry Manilow?
Yeah. At the Copacabana. Yeah. Good old Barry Manilow, man. Haven't heard that name in forever.
Yeah, there was a bunch of those guys that's kind of a lost genre, don't you think?
That kind of
Neil Sedaka.
show Vegas show kind of style of like music. Yeah.
Very popular.
Yeah. It kind of like had its prominence in the mid 70s, I guess, early 80s, and then kind of just died off. Neil Diamond, I guess, would be a part of that.
Yeah.
To some degree.
I think Michael Bublé kind of fits into that, though a different musical style, but
kind of revisiting it though.
Very
kind of that Vegas show tune kind of genre almost.
Appealing to the romantic, which I'm sure you appreciate, you associate with very, very definitely.
I totally relate to that. I'm a romantic. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. Deep romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, as far as Raul goes, I mean, I don't know about his romantic interests, but I know that he's not for transgender affirming care. I know that. So you may consider that romantic or not romantic, depending on what side of the transgender spectrum you're on, I suppose. But in April, Idaho became the second state after Alabama to make it a felony for healthcare providers to administer treatments, including puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries to transgender young people. The Vulnerable Child Protection Act that doctors provide care could face up to, if doctors provide care, could face up to a decade in prison and $5,000 in fines. I mean, $5,000 in fines doesn't seem like a whole lot when you're looking at a decade in prison.
Yeah, that's true. And consider the amount of money that's changed hands in those transitions is kind of a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, that means that the time and the money are separate, like you could do one or the other, or if it's like a mandatory. It must be like one or the other. Like, you're going to either face jail time or you're going to have a fine, or you can have both. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have both. That would kind of make sense.
Yeah, it seems like both would have to kind of be the deterrent, right? So what doctor involved in this kind of care would opt for the 10 years ever?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. They might opt for $5,000 though.
So if it's not both, that kind of makes this kind of a toothless.
Yeah. If you don't have the ability,
right?
Yeah, if you don't have the ability to take something away from them that's more precious than the money that they're going to charge the customer anyways.
Kind of like getting a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
$50 or 30 days in jail. I'll take the 50 and pedal to the metal again, right?
Yeah. That's a cheap speeding ticket. When was the last time you got a speeding ticket?
It's been a very long time.
I was going to say, the last speeding ticket I got, I mean, I was barely over. It was like over $100. It was ridiculous. So 3 other states have since followed suit in enacting bans that carry felony charges, and nearly half the country now heavily restricts or bans gender-affirming care for transgender minors. A federal judge in December temporarily blocked Idaho's ban just days before it was slated to take effect. The U.S. District Judge wrote that gender-affirming medical care, when provided in accordance with guidelines set by the World Professional Association of Transgender Health and Endocrine Society, is safe, effective, and medically necessary for some adolescents. Why is it every time that they want us to believe something, they just say that it's safe and effective?
That's the rubber stamp nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, hormones, altering a person's hormones, altering a person's physical body, all of those things are safe and effective and medically necessary. Well, are they? Are they, though? I mean,
it's a totally optional deal.
I can't imagine. It surprises me, actually, that the World Professional Association of Transgender Health would be supportive of transgender care.
Go figure.
I mean, they said it was okay, but man, what are we even talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's bonkers to me that we live in a society where people are even entertaining this idea. I was watching an interview, and it was an older interview back a while back, and it was with Jordan Peterson, and they were debating over this transgender affirming care and transgenderism in general. And he was making a point about the odds of a person having a person in their household that was a transgender person. And for like to have one child in your house that is a transgender person, it was like 1 in 3,000, something like that. May have been more than that, or I can't remember exactly, but it was a pretty
big number.
It was a big number. It was the chances are really, really low. But the conversation was about this lady that had 2 transgender children in her family. And he was like, the chances of you having 2 transgender children is not 1 in 6,000. It's like 1 in 3 million, because the way that statistics work. So if your chances of having 2 transgender children in your family is 1 in 3 million, or your chances of you being a devouring mother is 2,999,999 to 1, which one do you think is true? And I thought that was pretty interesting. It would be interesting to find out how many of these kids are transgender because their parents are telling them that they have these options, and then they bias it towards the transgender movement.
Or the child's jealous of the one that's getting the attention and
exactly.
all of that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, it's like, look at all the attention brother is having because of the thing that they're saying that they're doing. I'm going to do that too because then I can get the attention as well.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just letting the kids grow up and then make a decision when they're an informed adult. I think that's the biggest deal about this protection, because what it says is that it's like, as a parent, you're not allowed to take your child to a school or take your child to a hospital or even a church and them tell you that this person should transition and then start pushing them through the process to transition. It's protecting that child, giving them the rights that they deserve.
Yeah. Well, I think it gives them way more rights than they deserve.
That's a potential. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Because I mean, at what point does a child get to actually make those decisions?
Yeah, they can't vote, they can't drink, they can't drive, but you can physically alter your body.
Yeah,
how crazy is that? And now that it's imposing so many protections on those purported rights, that the parents are being charged with endangerment of their children if they don't do it. Or the school teachers and administration are protected if they do it behind the parent's back, or a relative or a friend. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, on the other side of that too, there's probably teachers and administrators in schools that are in other areas that are afraid of being sued because they're not affirming the gender of the child. It's like, the last thing we should be concerned about in schools is the genders of our children. Yeah. It's not even relevant to it. I don't even understand why it's in there, other than the fact that it's an agenda that they're trying to push. That's the only thing that could make sense. I mean, why is that even a thing? Who cares? I mean, it's just do the universal standard, and everybody do what you're supposed to do. And if that bothers you, then you go to your guidance counselor and you talk to your guidance counselor about it. You work through those issues. And, when you become an adult and you feel like you want to transition into being a female or a male or whichever way that you want to go or whatever you want to do with your body, more power to you. I mean, I feel sorry for you, but, that you can make that decision on your own. But yeah, this whole idea that we're pushing kids into these like decisions that are going to make long-term, lifelong changes to their body. It's just terrifying. And so, yeah, I'm glad to see Raul taking a step to protect that in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, I'm sure we'll see more safe and effective stuff coming out down the line for sure. Assisted by the conservative Christian legal group Alliance Defending Freedom. We love those guys. And the law firm Cooper and Kirk, Raul Labrador appealed the decision in January, but a 3-judge panel for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Who's your favorite?
Boy, denied it. Denied it in a 1-sentence order. The same 3-judge panel denied Labrador's second appeal for the full Ninth Circuit to reconsider the injunction. In an emergency motion filed with the U.S. Supreme Court this month, Idaho has asked the Supreme Court to take emergency actions so the state can enforce its felony ban on gender-affirming health care for transgender minors, arguing that a district court's injunction goes too far and the injunction should narrow the judge's orders to cover only the 2 transgender teenagers challenging the Idaho's law rather than all of the state's trans minors. Wait a minute. What does that say?
He's basically asking the Supreme Court to say that the Ninth Circuit Court's decision should only affect the two teenagers that are challenging the law, instead of saying
and
the law can't affect anybody
who says that they are transgender. Yeah. Right. Yeah, because then you're just making it null and void.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be like...
It's expanding the scope of the case.
He wrote this in an emergency motion, Labrador did. Every day, Idaho's law remains enjoined, exposes vulnerable children to risky and dangerous medical procedures and infringes Idaho's sovereign power to enforce its democratically enacted law. And this is a good place to kind of talk about parents' rights, right? Because as a parent, you have the right to teach, indoctrinate your child, if you will, in whatever it is that your belief system is. If your belief system is transgenderism, you have every right to teach your child whatever you want to about transgenderism. I believe that. I mean, if we're going to be supporters of parental rights for Christians, then we need to be supporters of parental rights for people who don't agree with
Everybody.
us. However, that doesn't mean as a Christian, I get to take your child, if I'm the principal of a school, take your child and put them into a classroom and say, look, you need to change your life and you need to alter everything that you are. And you need to, if we were to do the kind of things that transgenders do to children, we would be labeled a cult and dangerous.
Yeah. Back in the day, this was called programming or deprogramming, and it was super taboo, right? Like disciplinary boot camps, kids off the rails and they're just totally rebellious, could get sent to a boot camp off somewhere in some other state to...
Yeah, and they'd be separated from their family. They would be indoctrinated by people with their parents not being present. Kind of like what they're doing with a lot of these transgender kids today.
People just were in an uproar over that, saying you should not do that.
Yeah. I think it's just at some point, this whole kind of thing is going to be, this is my personal opinion. I think this whole thing, because of the way that they have approached it, is going to end up dying of its own accord because it's just become too heavy of a subject.
Yeah.
And people are just beginning to reject it out of hand. I know a lot of people don't share my optimistic view of society. But I kind of look at the things that are going on in the world and the way that people are responding to these things, the way that people are responding to sex and sexism as a whole. It seems to me like people are kind of resetting to factory defaults, more or less, because they're tired of being told what they are supposed to think. It's like this transgender lieutenant colonel, I guess, for the Air Force came up and they were showing his speech on X, and you're listening to this person and they're talking about, in our interdepartmental memos, we need to be listing our pronouns and, all this kind of nonsense. And I'm just thinking to myself, nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares about whether you like those pronouns or not. You can sit there and say that all you want, but nobody cares.
That's not the mission of the government or the military.
Nobody cares. Even if it wasn't the government, even if it's like, unless you are surrounded by a confirmation bias that cares about that particular thing, if you present that to like just the general world, they're just going to look at you and go, what? I don't care what you think that you want to be called. That doesn't matter to me. And it shouldn't. I'm going to call you by what I perceive you to be. If you look like a man, I'm going to call you he, him. If you look like a woman, I'm going to call you she, her, right? Because that's the way the English language is structured. If you want to be called something else, you can ask me. And depending on my mood, I may or may not entertain that, but probably not. So, you can ask, but that doesn't mean that I care. It's just getting to the point where every time I turn around, they're wanting to force it on people. And that is what's causing people to reject it. They're just like, we're done. We're done. And I think that's why a lot of people in Idaho support this, because they don't want these people that are getting in front of people and demanding pronouns that are in the same camp with people who pretend to be animals. and are in the same camp with people who do drag shows in front of children. You know what I mean? All these people are in the same kind of group. And whether they agree with each other or not, they're kind of lumped into that. And when you put yourself into that group and then you try and tell people the way that they should talk, it's like, no, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, if you're a person that's calling for your school to put litter boxes in your bathrooms because you identify as a cat, no, I'm sorry.
Mm.
Nope. Sorry, you don't get the privilege of being able to tell me what pronouns you desire. It just doesn't work that way. And respectfully, you know, I still love you because of Christ, but that doesn't mean I gotta like you.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, I don't like what you're doing, and I don't like the whole agenda. And it's kind of gross the way that they're trying to just force it on people.
Yeah. You can only push this identity envelope so far.
Yeah.
And
And
it pops.
yeah. And then people are just going to be like, nah, I'm done with it. And you're seeing that already with all the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. I mean, it's this DEI stuff is just, people are done with it, man. Like, if there's not a better example of that than Disney, I don't know. Tell me, because, you know, here was this, you know, this monolithic giant of entertainment for decades, and just raking in the money hand over fist. They had this amazing franchise in Marvel that was just raking in billions and billions of market shares. And then they embrace this nonsense where everything has to be either race washed or gender swapped or inclusive, and people just rejected it out of hand. They're just like, nah, I'm not interested in that. They just put out this movie, Madam Web, and it didn't even occur to me to go see it. It's like,
Nope.
it wasn't even a decision. It's like, wasn't even a consideration. It was just like, oh, they have a new movie out? Okay, whatever. I mean, when it used to be, when Captain America came out, it was like, I got to go see that. Now it's just like, meh. Nah, I don't really want to go see that. However, Dune 2 came out. I did go see that.
Did you? How'd you like it?
That was amazing.
Yeah, I got to see that.
Yeah, it was really good. Really, really well done. And I don't think people are going to... I think people are being introduced to it for the first time. Even people who saw the original movies are being introduced to it the first time as I kind of perceived it in the book, because it doesn't turn out the way that you think it's going to turn out. And the heroes that you think are the heroes are not necessarily the heroes. And so it's a really interesting take on it. And I really like how they've built it up. It was really, really well done. Really well done. It's the movie that we all needed right now to kind of redeem some of the entertainment industry.
Just really good storytelling.
It was really good storytelling. And Zendaya's character, who is Shani, you liked her not because she was a woman and you had to like her. You liked her because she was a woman and you respected her because of her story. Had nothing to do with her genitalia, had nothing to do with any of that. Mm-hmm. She didn't have to act a certain way. She didn't have to do anything. As a man, I felt endeared to her and respectful to her because of the way that she proved herself.
Mm-hmm. Strength of character always is attractive.
Yeah. And it doesn't even matter. She could have been ugly. It doesn't even matter, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter that she was a girl. Doesn't matter. She was powerful because she was powerful. And she's a powerful character because she's a powerful character. That's all there is to it. And so that, I think it's waking people up to this idea. It's like, oh, wait, straight white men aren't going to reject a movie because there's a female character that's in the lead. That's not going to happen. So what's going on with these other movies? Is it really...
And that is true to the story in the original book. It's
exactly.
Like, yeah, I can go with that.
Yeah. Is it really straight white men that are ruining these movies like Madam Web? Or is it diversity, equity, and inclusion gone amok that are pushing people away? That's the real question. And when they wake up to that, who knows? But, man, I think that's kind of part and parcel to what's going on here. It's like our legislatures in Idaho, thankfully, we've got enough of them that are beyond this nonsense, that are willing to say, no, we're not going to let you surgically change our children, and we're not going to let you hormonally change these children in the state of Idaho. We're just not going to let you do it. And so, a parent might decide that they want to take them to another state, I suppose, if they wanted to do something like that. More power to you. I think that's, maybe it'll at least give you time to reconsider. Let's not make permanent changes to their bodies and in their hormones until we've just seen all the data. Yeah. Because I don't think it's going to turn out the way that people think it's going to be done. So anyways, as an endpoint to that, the Supreme Court has also has so far been hesitant to intervene in transgender health care disputes, although two of the court's leading conservatives, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, appear eager to wade into cases implicating transgender protections. So, which is probably the tack they need to take.
Yeah.
They need to be a little bit conservative when it comes to interfering with states' rights, which is what Raul Labrador is all about. I mean, he's all about these states' rights, which begs the question, should the Ninth Circuit Court have even gotten involved to begin with? This is a states' rights issue. This is not a federal purview. Everything that we do should not be federally regulated. If you don't like the way that a state runs its laws, then there's all kinds of things.
49 other ones and Puerto Rico to choose from.
Yeah. And in reality, you can go to a lot of these states. If you have no money, you can go to a lot of these states and live better than you're living here. I mean, that's the truth.
Sure.
So,
what do you think? The Ninth Circuit Court, that covers basically all of the West, right?
Basically, yeah.
You think we should have our own circuit court, say, out of Seattle?
Maybe.
A Northwestern?
It might be time to create a 10th Circuit Court.
Because it sure seems like anything that comes out of the inland Northwest, for sure, anywhere inland from the coast that winds up in the Ninth Circuit, just comes up against a wall of liberalism.
Yeah.
It just dies right there.
Yeah. Just because they definitely don't agree with anything that we stand for, that's for sure. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it is time for a 10th Circuit Court. I know the Ninth is not very good for us, that's for sure. Every time we turn around, they're fighting us tooth and toenail. So there's a couple more things that we want to talk about. The border crisis in Texas. I thought it was interesting to note, and people should know, the letter that was sent by governors, and also the letter that was sent by attorney generals in January of 2024, which Raul Labrador was part of, the 25 attorney generals that issued a letter to President Biden and Department of Homeland Security Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, admonishing the administration to enforce immigration laws. The letter noted that more than 6 million people have illegally crossed into the United States in just under 3 years. A combined population, listen to this, a combined population of both Utah and Iowa.
Let that sink in for a minute.
Just in 3 years.
6 million people walked in.
We've taken in 2 states worth of people in 3 years. Most of them illegal. Probably 98% of them illegal.
All unplanned, all unaccounted for, all
well, that's the truth of it.
Unmanaged.
We have no idea who's out there.
Right.
We have no idea. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of them that are decent, hardworking people that have come here to try and find a better life for themselves. Amazing. That's great. But in that group of people, there are also pirates from Somalia. There's also gang members from cartels. There's also Muslims from any myriad of Muslim states
Mm-hmm.
across the world. And you're seeing these guys play out these horrendously violent acts just all the time. It turns out it's just, it seems like it's all the time that you're hearing about some college kid getting murdered or some person getting killed or some, police officer in New York City getting beat up or, whatever. And these people, they have no respect for the rule of law or for America at all in general. And it just blows me away that we're playing these political games. It's like there's a bill that was going to be passed and the Republicans stopped it because there was a lot of nonsense fat attached to it. And they didn't want to be a part of it. And so, of course, the spin is that the Republicans stopped the most aggressive immigration bill that's ever existed, because obviously the Republicans are anti-stopping the immigrants now at this point because they want Biden to look bad.
It's racism and it's child abuse and it's all these things.
And that actually may be true. It may be true that the Republicans didn't pass it because they wanted Biden to not look good. That maybe that is true. It would just be par for the course of Washington D.C. to just be playing games with our lives. And if you think about all the money that is spent on these illegal immigrants, like just take New York for example. They have taken all of these 5-star hotels, all of these places that have any place where you could put people. They have cleared them out by mandate of law and started putting illegal immigrants into those places.
I think I saw somewhere there was like 11 hotels in New York City.
Yeah.
Are just converted.
Now think about this, right? Just take yourself out of the capitalist part of it. Like, let's just say, for instance, okay, that's the right thing to do to reserve some of this space for those people because they got nowhere else to go. Let me ask you a question. Over the past 50 years, why have we not done that with the homeless population? Why? Why have we not taken care of our homeless veterans? Why have we not taken care of the people who are starving in the streets that are freaking American citizens? And now all of a sudden we need to clear out hotels to house these people who are illegal immigrants that don't have any illegal immigrants. Listen to that. Illegal aliens is what they are. They're not immigrants at all. They're illegal aliens. And we're clearing out all this space to just, I mean, what in the world is going on? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It just demonstrates to people, hey, look, we've been able to take care of the homeless problem all along. We just have chosen not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow.
Have you heard anything or read anything about the owners of these properties being compensated for doing this? I wonder if there's an upside to this that
there
they're
has
taking
to be.
advantage of.
There has to be, or there would be lawsuits
The
filed.
city's got to be.
I mean, there has to be federal money going into that program. I'm sure that there is. But if that's the case, then why haven't we already done that? I mean, just think about it. All the money.
Well, it's been a disaster everywhere that I know of. I mean, they did a bit of that in Spokane for the homeless there. Yeah. They'd convert an old rundown hotel, fix it all up, create low-income housing, and people would move in and just tear the place to shreds.
Yeah.
And then they'd have to move them out because they're tearing it up.
I'm going to see if I can find this, but what could we have done with the money sent to Ukraine? There was a guy that did a video on this, and he was talking about all of the things that we could have done with all of the money that we have sent to Ukraine. And as it stands, the United States of America, let's see if I can get this number real quick. as it stands, the United States of America has promised $679.9 million in foreign assistance to Ukraine in fiscal year 2020. Now, this is an old article, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's upwards of like $6 to $7 billion now, maybe more. I should have thought about this earlier and gotten this figure. The amount of money that we have sent to them is way into the billions at this point. And this guy did this video. I wish I could find it. I'm going to have to find it and put a link to it somewhere. But he was talking about all the things that we could have done with this money had we chosen to keep it here at home. And he was saying that all of the people who lost their houses in Maui, we could have given them $55 million each.
Wow.
We could have given all the veterans that are currently on veterans benefits, we could have given them $2 million each. Set them up for life. Right? This is probably kind of subjective, but he was like, we could have solved homelessness twice over at this point. It just goes to show you that the will of our leaders when it comes to the border, when it comes to foreign policy, the will of our leaders is not really about us. It's about everyone else and how much money they can make, which is why Donald Trump's going to win in 2024, whether you like him or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter if you like him or not, because people are just sick. Even people who live in big cities like New York, I mean, they're watching this happen to their city. They're just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with this garbage.
Businesses are moving out. Investors are moving out. Natives are moving out.
I just don't understand how you would think that that's a good idea. Like, where does that come from? Like, we're just going to be a sanctuary city for people who are entering our country illegally. And we're just, that's a good idea. How? Like, why would you think that that's a good idea? I mean, maybe you're going to give them, I'm going to tell you what, man. If it turns out that these illegal aliens are voting, there's going to be an uprising. There's going to be an uprising. It's not going to be riots. It's going to be worse. And that's fearful. Because, and maybe that's what they want. You know, maybe they want that. Maybe they want to destroy it from the inside out. I don't know. You know, I mean, I'm not calling for that. I don't want that. But, you know, I mean, I think that if you just leave this, you know, open to just illegal immigration, just pouring in like this all the time, you know, I mean, it's that split that you saw when that letter was issued by the governors to the governor of Texas. It's like there's this line of states that go from the middle of the state or the middle of the country, just splits it right in two. And there's this big giant swath of land in the middle. And then there's like these two little tiny little strips on either side that are not for it. And it's like these little tiny strips that are on either side are where New York is at, where San Francisco is at, where Los Angeles is at, where all these really major liberal cities and places ran by liberal governments are. And it's terrifying, man, to think about what's going to happen if this doesn't get resolved. I can tell you this right now, though. The chances of Trump getting a second term, pretty darn high at this point.
All the signs are just like, he doesn't even have to try.
He's not. He hasn't even been to any debates because he's been too busy in court.
They're going to force him into the Oval Office. Oh, it's such.
That's another thing too. Is who was it I was listening to? I think it was Bill Burr, the comedian. He was on a talk show. And he was the guy had asked him something about Trump being in office or something like that. And his comments were to the effect of, this guy drives you guys crazy, but if you had just left him alone, If you'd have just left him alone,
Just ignore him.
just ignored him, he would have went away. He would have faded off into obscurity.
Yeah.
But you guys just had such a infatuation with him that you couldn't let it go.
Which played directly into his ego.
Yep. And
He's just feeding on
directly into his supporters. I mean, have you seen all of the places that he has gone and held a rally? It's not been like poorly attended. I mean, there's lines a mile long trying to get into these places.
It's fascinating to me.
Isn't it?
I mean, if he came up here to Coeur d'Alene, I'd be like, so what?
I mean, I wouldn't go.
I might watch his speech on the news or
maybe.
something.
I mean, I could probably count on one hand the number of his speeches that I have watched all the way through. Probably segments of it.
And they're all the same.
And they're all the same, basically. And he's funny. I mean, he has comedic talent. He really does.
He's basically giving the status quo and the administration the finger.
That's pretty much what he is. He is
Americans
a
love it.
living, breathing middle finger to the establishment. That's what he is. It really, truly is. It's bonkers, man. Let's see. He also said this. So getting back to this, Raul, when he issued this letter, in this letter, it concluded with this, the letter that he sent to Mayorkas and Biden. It concluded with this: if you cannot bring yourselves to enforce the law, get out of the way so Texas can. And there you go.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's pretty fair. It was also said, this was also said, it's an invasion by every rational definition of the term. And the Biden administration has gone from incompetently turning a blind eye to actively encouraging it, said General A.G. Labrador. As sovereign states and as a nation of laws, we stand with Texas. We should all stand with Texas, was what he said.
Well
and
put.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. You know, I mean, we are being invaded by every metric, and it's just getting dismissed. And man, that's something it makes me thankful. If you doubted the fact that the people that you put into office are actually fighting for Idaho, you should pay attention to some of these things because it demonstrates that they are taking steps to fight for Idaho. Which is good. So the next one is the Defense of Life Act. What time are we at? Okay. So the Defense of Life Act versus the Biden administration. Raul Labrador, together with Alliance Defending Freedom, filed a brief petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court to stop the Biden administration from invoking a 1986 federal statute to override Idaho's pro-life law. The Defense of Life Act was enacted in Idaho to protect the unborn after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Quote, the whole point of Dobbs was to restore to the states their authority to regulate abortion. Yet the administration seeks to thwart Idaho's exercise of self-government on this important topic. The brief stated. It called Biden administration, quote, claimed abortion mandate under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. Imaginary, which it is. According to a press release by the Alliance Defending Freedom, the Biden administration sued the state of Idaho in 2022, quote, claiming that it could use EMTALA, which is the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, to enforce emergency room doctors to perform abortions that are unlawful in Idaho. And then it also said this: after a lower court upheld the Biden administration's attempt to rewrite EMTALA and prevented Idaho from enforcing its law, the legal group explained the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case and issued a stay allowing Idaho to continue to protect the laws of women and their unborn children as the litigation continues. The motion that EMTALA requires doctors perform abortions is absurd, stressed the Attorney General. We are asking the Supreme Court to end the administration's unlawful overreach and to respect the people of Idaho's decision to protect life. And then he said this: the federal government has been wrong from day one. Federal law does not preempt Idaho's Defense of Life Act. I mean, if that doesn't sound like a guy who's defending Idaho, I don't know what does.
It boggles my mind that the administration is suing Idaho over laws that Idaho passed by valid election.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, Idaho, you got it wrong.
Yeah.
You need to obey.
But honor the election, right? I mean, we're gonna make sure that we honor the people's decisions, except for when it doesn't agree with us, and then we're not going to honor the people's decision. You know, it's like, again, that's the reason that we have sovereign states.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in a state that you don't like, then you can move to another state that agrees with your standards and principles and ideas. And if the federal government really wanted to do something to help, maybe they could provide an assistance program for people that wanted to move from one state to another because they didn't agree with the laws. That would be an interstate thing that the federal government could legitimately be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought. Instead of trying to make states be...
Or the state itself.
Or the state itself.
The crisis that California is going through right now with its depopulation.
Yeah.
Could offer incentives to people to move to California.
Yeah, and
we'll waive your state tax for a year. Just move to California.
Yeah, instead of paying for the food and beverages and housing of all these illegal aliens that are coming over, perhaps you could double the welfare that you're paying to the people who are already living in your state and pay for people that wanted to move from other states to move to your state.
There are ways to do it.
Seemed like a good idea to me. Instead of just trying to populate your state with people who don't care about our country or care about you in general. They just want to have a place where they can work. Well, there's not going to be any jobs left, guys. So where are you going to go? Well, you're going to start trying to come to places like Idaho. And we're going to be like, no. No, you can't come here. Sorry.
Got ID?
You got an ID? You got a state ID? Yeah. Are you an American citizen? Sorry. You got to move on. So in any case, that's good to see. You know, I'm glad to see them fighting for that and the Defense of Life Act. And I think most of our legislatures would agree that there's some work that needs to be done on that bill. But I'm glad to see that we have something in place so that, you know, we can protect the unborn. And, you know, I love the argument from people who are pro-choice that, you know, you just don't care about the lives of women. And it's like, well, okay, fair enough. If we actually looked at the numbers of lives saved, if abortion is banned, the aggregate number of lives saved is exponentially higher than the number of lives that are saved if it is illegal. The only difference is that we can't agree on the fact that this person is a person, that it's a life. You want to assume that it is not a life, and we do. That's the fundamental.
It all hinges
problem.
on morality, which we've talked about many times. It all boils back down to morality.
Yeah, and this is a great example of how politics is always downstream from morality, and you have to be speaking into that. That's a great example of that, about being involved in the political system, because if your morality is not being promoted in some way, then you're just ceding it over to people with lower morals than yourself. And, you know, that's too bad. You probably shouldn't do that. Did you know that Raul Labrador prevailed against the Satanic Temple? He won.
That probably slipped under most people's radar.
Yeah. I would love to hear a satanic priest's opinion of this, like how they feel about this, and what they think their probably next steps are going to be. I think it'd be interesting to talk to a person from the Satanic Temple, anyways, just to kind of get a feel for, you know, if they're real or not. But that's just a side note. Anyways, this month, Labrador prevailed as a federal district court judge dismissed a challenge to Idaho's pro-life law brought by the Satanic Temple. So the same pro-life law that was attacked by the Biden administration was also attacked by the Satanic Temple.
Strange bedfellows, right?
Yeah. I mean, you hear the word satanic and people automatically think of the imagery that you automatically think of. But most of the people who have an opinion about the Satanic Church, and I'm not making a defense for the Satanic Church, I'm just saying most people's understanding of the way that these guys think is very simplistic. They have never, obviously, probably never read any of Anton LaVey's work, which is the founder of the Satanic Church. They've never tried to understand what it is that they promote. And the truth of it is that they don't believe in God. And for the most part, they don't believe in Satan. The only reason that he encapsulated this idea of the Satanic Church was just as a direct mockery of Christianity, which in and of itself is satanic, obviously, just as satanic as any other worldly secular thing that is out there. Let's not be deceived, right? Just because it has the name doesn't make it any more or less evil than all the other evil that is out there. It's just more in your face, which I mean, at least it's in your face. I mean, I think that's pretty good. I mean, I would say that most of our federal government is satanic at this point. They're not going around promoting it, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's not veiled under someone else's name, like
LaVeyism.
LaVeyanism.
Yeah.
That would be difficult.
But they're all about self. They're all about self-satisfaction. They're all about
self-government, self-everything.
Yeah, they're all about the individual, which makes them an interesting kind of proponent for like individual liberty, which is interesting to me that they would be in such strong support of something like abortion, because it doesn't. I guess
it ignores the little self.
It ignores the little self inside of there and doesn't give them the option. And I'll guarantee you that there is a Satanist or a group of Satanists out there that are pro-life. I'll guarantee it because of their stance on the importance of the self. To the point of selfishness.
It'd be interesting to hear their definition of the point of sentience.
Yeah, it would be interesting. That would be interesting to hear. Like, when does a person become sentient?
From a non-moral viewpoint, it'd have to be from a purely biological viewpoint, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you would think. Like, you would have to base it off of like when brain waves occur or something. Something
different.
Yeah.
Other, right?
Even more so than even a heartbeat, because I mean, I guess you could argue that even a heartbeat was just a muscle responding to some nerve stimuli. Doesn't necessarily, from their point of view, probably doesn't necessarily promote the idea of sentience.
Yeah. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, which would be important to them. I mean, from our point of view, it's like, well, it was conceived, so it's alive. That's the other side of the extreme version of that, I guess. But that would be interesting to find out. But District Court Chief Judge David C. Nye dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning that the Satanist group cannot bring the case in the district court another time. So he's like, okay, we're not hearing this anymore. According to Labrador's press release, the Satanic Temple claimed a constitutionally protected right for its female members to ceremonially abort their babies as part of a satanic ritual that involves the eerie evocation, "My body, my blood, by my will, it is done." Well, there you go. Yeah. There's a lot of my's in there. Yeah. So that makes sense. But apparently the Supreme Court in this case, or district court in this case, the judge was like, nah, I don't think so. You don't get to create religious freedoms for every law that comes along. That's not the way that works.
Certainly not constitutionally protected.
Exactly. So a lawyer for the Satanic organization said that it will appeal the case to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has a reputation for being among the most liberal. We've already talked about that.
So it's probably going to get kicked out of there, up to the Supreme
It'll
Court
go
again.
up to the Supreme Court again, and Raul and ADF will be at the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court will have to write briefs on, leave the states alone, let them make their own laws, and if you don't like it, move. That's what
It'll be
it's
interesting to see
boil
which one
down
of these
to.
cases goes before the Supreme Court first, either the Biden administration or the Satanic Temple, and set the precedent that the other one will just give up.
The other one will just get canned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the most part, I think it's just great to see that we have get people in place that are actually fighting for Idaho now. And we've got some great folks in our area with Heather Scott and with Dale Hawkins, and and up north you got Scott Herndon, and you got there's so many good people that are trying their best to do the best they can to fight for Idaho's rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, it's a good time in Idaho right now.
And our way of life and our values.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting. We'll for sure have one of those guys on after the legislative session ends to kind of get a recap on what some of the high points were and some of the battles fought down there in Boise during this session. It's going to be over here this month, I believe, towards the end of the month. And everything I've seen so far sounds like they're working really hard and hammering things out and getting things done.
Trying to get some movement going on all these bills that are in there.
So Idahoans should be pretty proud of their elected officials.
One thing that we didn't hit on when we were talking about the House bills was the state of Idaho's bill the House bill to make it a capital offense to commit a sexual crime against a person under the age of 12.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was I forget which one it was, but there was one of them in there that it changed the language so that if you committed a felony sexual act against a child under the age of 12, it could be considered a capital crime.
Wow.
Which means it could carry with it the death penalty. That's saying something right there.
That's getting serious.
And man, thank God, I mean, maybe it'll put an end to all this, nonsense. People will think twice. You're not just going to go to jail. You could be put to death for, this act against this small child. And people who are, on the side like that even crosses over into abortion rights, because it's like if you're a young girl and you get incestually raped by your father or brother or whatever, and you end up getting pregnant, but you can't get an abortion here because abortion's illegal. And it's like, oh, she's getting punished and he's not. It's like, nope. If she was young enough, he could be facing the death penalty. If she is over 12, there's still really stiff felony penalties against sexual misbehavior against children, minors. And so nobody's getting off scot-free in that situation.
Yeah. It's not well tolerated.
No, not here. It's not nor in prison.
No.
Yeah, nor in prison.
That was my point. Yeah. That may be the worst.
Yeah. Don't go to jail for that, for sure. So in any case, you got any final words, Ken?
Wow. It's just kind of encouraging to see Idaho taking a stand now, and it makes it even more of a safe haven for conservatives and for Christians in general. But, we know this is just a temporary situation.
Yeah.
That conditions are going to continue to decline morally, everything else. So keep putting up the fight, get involved where you can, pray. That's going to have even more effect, I believe, as time goes on here. But it is a little bit encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It is encouraging to see our leaders standing up for the people. It's a refreshing change.
Yeah.
It really is.
It would be discouraging if we were losing all of these battles and nothing was being done and nothing was being asserting Idaho's rights.
Yeah.
And we were just falling into become like many people fear. We're just going to become the next Colorado.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Colorado used to be like Idaho. And now Colorado's kind of fighting with Oregon, Washington, and California to become the liberal Mecca in the West.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they may not be included in the lines drawn in the cessation of states. Yeah. Who knows, right? Anyways, I mean, I am encouraged as well, and I would say that, you should really be interested in what's going on in your state, because I mean, people are really kind of obsessed with what's happening with the federal government, but man, I agree with Heather Scott in this. So, it's like that fight is so over. It's going to have to work itself out. There's no one thing that you can do to fix it. And it's just going to have to collapse under its own weight. It's kind of like education, it's going to have to collapse under its own weight. You can't change it.
Yeah. Trump's not going to change it.
No.
Conservative administration's not going to stop it and change it.
Nope.
That to quote another pun, that ship has pretty much left the dock.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sailing.
Yeah, even if Trump got into office, I mean, he's going to be so tied up fighting with the people that are in office that, I mean, if you think that there's going to be a lot that's going to be accomplished, you're deceiving yourself. There's too much money involved. There's too much power involved. And so just focus on your state, your state sovereignty. That's what's really going to matter. And that's the reason that we are the United States of America, because each state is sovereign to itself. And we should remember that, and go out and vote and make sure you're participating.
Yeah, and there's not really going to be any real systemic change in this country until the hearts and minds of men and women and children are changed by the gospel.
Yep.
So that's where we come in, our job.
Yep. Preach the word of God, to go, to reach, and to build. That's what we do. All right. Well, that about does it for us today. As always, thank you for joining us. And if you have a comment or a question or an idea for an episode, send us an email at 3p@atholbaptistchurch.org, where Ken is waiting with bated breath to answer your questions and your emails. If your idea gets used in the show, you could be the proud recipient of the now world-famous 3P coffee mug. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks again to Athol Baptist Church and its members for their generous support of this ministry. Again, thank you for listening, and until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.